So I'm glad everybody had a good weekend. You will need the code that's right here. So we can go to our Pear Deck. You will also need the document that is in the first slide. Um, so if you do not have that pulled up, then we need to go ahead and pull that up. I will put the link in the chat so that we are good to go. And we can go ahead and answer our question. What is the difference between biotic and abiotic factors? Alrighty, so most of us are choosing the correct answer. It is C. The abiotic factors are non-living and biotic factors are living. So today we are going to talk about the factors in an ecosystem. If you did not open your document, if you click right here, it will open it for you. So we can get started on what we need to talk about today. All right, so we're going to start today with a little bit of a review of what we talked about last week. We started with exactly what an ecosystem is. We learned that an ecosystem contains both the living and the non-living features in a environment. We also talked about the difference between our biotic and our abiotic factors. We also talked about on Friday the levels of organization. We talked about how an organism is kind of the beginning of that and how it goes from one organism to a population being a group of organisms that are the same. And then from there you have community, which community is a bunch of the same population in one given space. They are only the biotic factors. And then you have an ecosystem, which is the abiotic factors as well as the biotic factors in the area. And the biosphere is the area where all living things are going to reside. A niche and a habitat is the other thing we talked about on Friday. A habitat is going to be the general place where an organism lives, whereas the niche is more of the role that it plays in the ecosystem or the job that it has. Some of the animals, they will eat other animals. Some plants grow in different conditions, whether they're sunny or they're shaded. And then you have worms and bacteria that kind of break down our different matter in the area. This is going to create something called biodiversity. We know that bio means life, diversity is just different, so different types of life and varieties within the world. It's what we kind of talked about last week. So this week we're going to pick up with limiting factors and how they make things behave in a given environment. So first, what exactly is a limiting factor? These are conditions of an environment that are going to limit the growth of a species. They can be both biotic or abiotic, and they are going to prevent populations from growing and kind of getting out of control. Populations would continue to increase if they had all of the resources they needed in unlimited amounts, and they would just keep increasing and increasing. But limiting factors are going to kind of control the growth in the environment. So if you look at the picture of this fishbowl right here, if there were unlimited supplies of everything that they needed, then they would just continue to reproduce and reproduce, and it would overcrowd, just like this particular fish bowl. But it doesn't look very comfortable for the fish, and they kind of have too much going on. So, with our limiting factors, there are a few things that this could be. They can include competitors, because people are, or not people, well, organisms may be competing over the same thing. You could have diseases and parasites that might wipe different things out. You could have different weather issues like hurricanes and tornadoes, droughts, floods, any of that sort of thing. You could have other natural disasters like fire that some of them are man-made and cause issues. Some of them just occur in nature, from when maybe lightning strikes a tree and it ends up making things catch on fire, and you have really large forest fires. The habitat availability, as well as predators being there, are all different factors that can limit a population. All right, so that takes us to carrying capacity and what exactly that is. Because of the limiting factors that are in nature, each ecosystem has a very finite or a very specific capacity for growth that is connected to something that is called the carrying capacity. What this is, it's the maximum number of living organisms that a specific environment can support. So, the limiting factors in an ecosystem are going to actually determine the carrying capacity of each organism. So, what's going on in that particular environment, whether it's based on, let's go back so we can look. If it's based on any of these things, different competing for resources, different diseases, parasites, weather that might be hurting or wiping things out, fires, predators in that area, all of those things are going to directly relate to the number of living organisms in that specific environment. So we do have a few videos today that are going to help explain some of the concepts. They are rather short videos today, and we are going to start with carrying capacity.
Welcome to Moo Math and Science. In this video, I'd like to talk about carrying capacity of an environment. The maximum number of individuals in a species that an environment can support for the long term is the carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is limited by the energy, water, oxygen, and space, which are all limiting factors. As a population nears the carrying capacity, resources become limited. And if a population exceeds the carrying capacity, deaths begin to outnumber births. Let's take a look at the fish family that live in the fish bowl. Life is plentiful. There's plenty of space. There's food to eat. There's energy from the sun. And they're able to reproduce. However, as they reproduce, resources begin to become limited. They're limited by space and the amount of food. However, they're still able to reproduce. Eventually, there becomes so many fish that some of the fish begin to die off because there's not food to eat and the water is limited. They have reached the carrying capacity, and deaths will outnumber births until it gets back in balance. So there we go. The largest population that an environment can support is known as the carrying capacity. Thanks for watching, and Moo Math uploads a new math and science video every day. Please subscribe and share.
All right, so like the video kind of told us, that our carrying capacity is going to be linked to a few things. One is going to be food, another is shelter, another is water, and the fourth one is going to be space. In the event that any of these factors or items are not present in an ecosystem, they are going to directly affect the amount of organisms that can be supported by that environment. So limiting factors are definitely going to determine the carrying capacity of an environment. So what we're going to look at today, we are going to watch a video clip. It is another one about those wolves in Yellowstone, like we watched last week. I told you we would be looking at different pieces of the puzzle that we're talking about. So today we are looking for how reintroducing the wolves to Yellowstone helps stabilize the carrying capacity in the park. So, how did reintroducing the wolves help stabilize the carrying capacity within Yellowstone? Is what we are looking for.
Yellowstone, the world's first national park. Protected to ensure there.
All right. So, from that video clip, how did reintroducing the wolves help stabilize the carrying capacity within Yellowstone? So I do want you to put it in the box. That way I can see your answers as well as actually typing it on your document, which is right here. That is where that goes. It's the beauty of being on a computer. We can copy and paste. Alrighty, so things that I am seeing in the box are um, it expanded it for more species to be able to eat other food. It stabilized the capacity of both animals and plants by making the elk move to different places. Um, the wolves ate the elk to help bring down the numbers. And because the elk were moving around, plants and trees were able to regrow. That is a great answer. Great explanation. Good job. Okay. I think that's like one of the best answers. So yes, good job. They definitely help with overpopulation of the elk, as well as being able to kind of change some of those migration patterns that go with all of those elk. All right, so there are three major types of limiting factors. One of them we've already talked about, which is biotic and abiotic. These are going to relate to population density as well. And population density just describes the number of individuals in a given area. So if we're talking about the difference between rural and a city, there will be a higher population density in a city because there's more people that live there compared to a rural area that the houses are more spread out and there's not as many people. Their population density would be smaller. So we have density dependent, we have density independent, as well as our biotic and abiotic factors. All right, so our last video today is going to explain the difference between our density types, and I want you to put in your own words and let me know what is the difference.
What limits the size of a population? Have you ever wondered why there aren't a million coyotes everywhere? Coyotes are smart and are great at finding food no matter what. So shouldn't there be more of them? The size of all populations is limited, meaning populations can only get so big. The reason there aren't coyotes everywhere is because there are certain things called limiting factors that keep the density of a population down. Density means the number of organisms in a particular area. Some limiting factors are called density independent. These factors are not affected by how many organisms are in a population. Temperature, floods, and pollution are all examples of density independent limiting factors. Other limiting factors are only important if the population size or density gets too big. Predation, competition, disease, and the amount of available food are all density-dependent limiting factors because the more organisms there are, the more these things become important. If there are only 10 coyotes in your neighborhood, there's probably enough food for them all. But if there's 50 coyotes, there won't be enough food. And if there's a flood, all the coyotes will be affected, no matter if there's 10 or 50.
All right, so what is the difference between our density dependent and our density independent factors? What is the difference? Density independent is something that happens affect density independent factors are not affected by the organism's living area, while density dependent factors depend on the amount of organisms living in the area and their competition. I definitely agree with you. Good job. Um, so, um,
What
Our dependent factors, they are they usually affect one specific population of animals. They usually include competition, predation, parasitism, and disease. A lot of times they are specific bacteria, or it's an issue with they don't have enough space or food that can cause a lot of issues. So one thing that where this happens a lot is like in kennels where they have a bunch of animals that are living in one specific place, and then they begin to get sick because they don't have enough space for the animals to be able to roam around and all of that. Bacteria sometimes spreads because of the feces that comes from the animals using the bathroom. The bacteria from that might get into their food or their water supply, and therefore kind of kill off some of the other animals. You have specific viruses or bacterial parasites that affect certain animals that could cause issues. So, like there was a what was it, a swine flu that was going around that was affecting pigs. You have mad cow disease that affects cows. So there are certain things that only affect specific populations of animals, whereas density independents are they don't really care about the species itself. They affect everything in the area. A lot of times these are get it together. They're abiotic factors, like weather changes. You also have drought. You also have like tornadoes with weather, hurricanes, earthquakes, any of those different things. You can also have forest fires. You can have human activities like pollution. We talked about those peppered moths changing colors and because of the industrial revolution. So different things can happen that will affect the environment and the organisms in it, but not just a specific population of animals. Competition. This is where it is definitely density dependent, and this is where you have organisms in an ecosystem that try to get the same resources. So in this picture, we have a lion that is trying to get this zebra that it has killed. Well, with competition, not only is he trying to get it from himself, he has to also protect it from other lions that may be in the area. He also has to protect it from maybe hyenas that may be around, and the vultures and all that stuff that are also coming to get the prey. So if animals don't eat, they eventually will die. So that's where a lot of the competition comes in. Is so it's a survival mechanism. Lastly, if we were looking at these pictures, which would have more issues with competition for resources? Would it be picture one or picture two? And then why? Ooh, a lot of people are saying number two. All right, so why with number two? because the population is bigger. Okay. The same resources have to feed all of those penguins, right? Picture number 2, because they have more penguins, making it harder for everyone to get what they need. Exactly correct. So this one would be, they would have a lot more competition than this picture right here. All right, so we are going to use the remainder of class to finish our document. We should be through our notes by now. I will say that this particular lesson does have a lot of vocabulary that is specific to our ecosystems. So we do have some vocabulary practice, because there are questions that will be on your test when you take it, as well as on your EOG, that will ask you stuff about limiting factors and carrying capacities and competition and all that. And if you don't know what these words mean, then you are going to have a difficult time understanding and being able to answer the questions. And vocabulary plays a big part in that. So that's why we have a separate vocabulary for this particular lesson. So you can choose which one you want to do. You can either do the Quizlet or the vocab squares, up to you. We also have a small article that talks about how food, water, space, and weather conditions can limit population growth. You'll just answer the questions over here. We don't have to annotate today. You're just going to answer them over here in the margins. The last thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the different density factors, and you are going to identify if it is a independent or a dependent density type. What is the limiting factor, and then kind of explain it. You do have 3 examples you're going to do. I did the first one for you, so that way you can see what it is doing, and you can have an example. My first block, we noticed that these pictures are kind of small and it's kind of hard to read the scenarios. So if you click here, it will open this Google drawing for you that the pictures are blown up, so you can read the scenarios, so to make it a little bit easier. So for the first one, it says a drought decreases the water in a lake, resulting in lower carrying capacity, the maximum number of life that can be supported by the lake. So here, the limiting factor itself is going to be the drought. The drought is what's causing the issue. The density type is going to be independent, because it will affect all of the, 1, because it's a non-living entity, and 2, because it's going to affect everything that is tied to that to that lake and not being able to have enough water. Droughts don't really care how many organisms are present, and it is an abiotic factor, and any size population could receive a drought at any time, so it can affect any of them, not just one specific species. So you're going to use use these pictures to identify your other factors. What is the limiting factor? What's the density type? And explain your choice for why you chose that one. And then you'll be done. And so once you are finished, you will turn it into the factors in the ecosystem assignment that is on Canvas, and you will be good to go. Does anybody have questions? If you're watching this video and you have questions, please send them to my Canvas inbox and I will answer them for you.